Hey there, hi there, hello there. Welcome to an all-new episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and joining me as always is my co-host, Alex. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well today, and I'll be doing well tomorrow, based off of the intercontinental time difference that we're experiencing right now. There's a time warp going on. It's fantastic.
We do have someone from the future joining us, as you may have noticed with the special music that we had. We have returning once again the wonderful Matt Groom. Matt Groom, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. And I have great news about the future. It's not measurably worse than yesterday, which this year is actually fantastic. So,
From your mouth
very
to
happy
God's
be able-
ears.
Absolutely, yes. If we could just stop the radical descent, then I think we'll be in a really good place.
The Olympics just started. Aren't we all about radical descents off of mountains?
That's a fantastic point. And I think radical is a great word to use. It definitely conjures up thoughts of grabbing snowboards for sick tricks and stuff. So if we can sort of transition from the sort of radical descent we've been experiencing into one that's just about radical mountain descents and sick tricks, then that'd be fantastic.
You know what? I'll practice my sick half pipe backflips and see if we can work on that.
Please do. I will be requesting status updates on how you're
I
performing.
think the technical term is slalom, which is a great word.
Oh, slalom. Yeah, slalom's one of those words that sounds like it should, right?
It sounds like it should, but it also sounds like I don't think you can actually say it without sounding drunk. The slalom.
Sure, yeah. It's a great point.
So, Matt, you are, among other things, a comic book writer, and you are part of the Massive-verse.
Mm-hmm.
You've been on the show a few times for the first Supermassive with the Inferno Girl Red Kickstarter, and then once again with the Inferno Girl Red 2 Kickstarter. We are here to talk about all those things. But one thing, I've gone back and listened to our episodes, and you've briefly touched on your origin story getting into the comic book industry, but we've never really had a chance to talk to Matt Groom about who Matt Groom is and Matt Groom's interests, among other things. So we always have the first question we ask, which is the most important question we always ask. It's, what you doing? When you're not making money, when you're not creating content, writing comic books, doing all these other things, what do you do for fun?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, I currently have 3 jobs. So, not heaps, to be honest. It's largely work. But I will say, I have joined seemingly half the people on planet Earth in playing Arc Raiders as a way of releasing, some tension. But also it has, because of the premise of the game, it is something of just a big social experiment. And going into a game where people are kind of incentivized to screw you over and take all your stuff, and instead having the experience of people working together and just kind of being generous and forming sort of little communities, it's been good for the soul. It's been a good reminder that people can be good at their core, and often are, even if we don't necessarily see that day to day, because good stuff can be kind of boring by comparison.
Arc Raiders is basically an extraction shooter, so the objective is to drop in, try to get as much gear as possible, and if you die, people are supposed to loot you and your run's over. But if you can have actually good experiences with your team and with others being understanding, that's actually really awesome.
It's really cool.
Probably the reason I don't want to play a game like that is I am great at PvE. Once you put me, I played Destiny 2 for a very long time. I just recently dropped out now that the Light and Dark saga is over. Anytime I had a grind doing PvP, you could tell that I was just, springing, they were just shuffling me okay, you're really terrible. Oh, you actually got a positive KDA. And then it's we'll move you up. And the second they move me up, it's he's you died 15 times, 1 kill. Good. We'll move you back down. We're sorry.
Well, I think Arc Raiders is such an interesting blend because there's a lot of PvE to it. And I think this has been confirmed now. If you don't engage in PvP, if you don't shoot anybody else, you're more likely to be put in lobbies with other people who are that way inclined.
Oh.
And it doesn't guarantee that. So there's always a risk that there's someone out there who's, more aggressive and trying to take your stuff. But I have been playing quite a bit of Arc Raiders, and I very, very rarely have to involve myself in any sort of combat against other players. And in fact, when that happens, I just kind of book it rather than trying to fight. So yeah, the majority of my experience is just like PvE with a bunch of chill folks who are just kind of helping each other out, which is it's lovely.
That's awesome. I like that. Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
that was possible. Like, I've seen a lot of people talking about Arc Raiders and loving on it. I've seen some gameplay, but I haven't seen like a pacifist kind of gameplay loop that's actually worthwhile. So that's really cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Hugely, yeah.
So, Matt, you got your start in the industry really by having a pretty successful Power Ranger, or being on a pretty successful Power Rangers podcast. It was Ranger Danger, if I'm remembering?
Ranger Danger, I would probably dispute pretty successful, depending on what
I'm
metric
sorry,
you're
wildly successful.
If you were to measure that by volume of output, certainly. Wildly successful at producing episodes. We are definitely extremely niche, but we have fun. And, it was never about becoming a podcasting empire, and more about doing something very silly and almost self-destructive for a decade and a half.
Yeah, you and Michael Basudel, if I remember correctly, the editor
That's
for
right.
the
Massive Verse
Massiverse.
titles. Yeah.
And that's how you met Kyle, and it like somehow he kind of like dragged you into this world of comic book writing.
Yeah, that's right. He was on Power Rangers at the time, and we one of our podcast listeners actually reached out and tagged Kyle on Twitter, and it's like, hey, you should interview these guys. Or sort of vice versa. You should be interviewed by these guys. He agreed, and we chatted, and then he decided that he had a good time and he wanted to do like director's commentary style. Like after every issue, we'd do a breakdown. And because of that, we would chat super regularly and we'd chat story a bunch. And it got to the point where he was like, wow, you seem to have a good head for this stuff if you thought about writing comics. And I sort of said, yeah, that's all I've ever wanted. But I didn't want to ask my one friend who's in comics, like, hey, can you get me a job? So he's like, all right, cool. Well, why don't you just like write a test script? I just want to see what you can do. Write a, 22-page comic, like with an idea of your own creation. And I did that and I sent it through and he was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to shop it around to be the editor and it'll be a series. And I was like, whoa, hang on. I thought this was just like we were just kind of playing around here. But he's like, no, we're going to make this a thing. And that was Self-Made, my first Image series. And then, yeah, from there, it's just been kind of progressively doing different stuff, and sometimes with Kyle, sometimes out on my own.
And I mean, I'm wildly happy with everything that you have put out, either in collaboration. I think it's wonderful, which is again one of the many reasons why we invite you back. Besides just being a wonderful person,
Yeah.
but it is just super cool to hear that Kyle is so like giving of his time and willing to give people chances. That's one of the biggest things I've heard about him, is that he is always ready and willing to help, despite him being overwhelmed with whatever he's already doing.
Definitely. I think like probably to his detriment, he's a generous and giving person. And also just like knows everybody because he's very friendly and sort of outgoing. So yeah, very, very generous soul, even if sometimes I kind of wish he'd just take it a bit easier and not like do a million different things and burn himself out.
Sounds like my wife a little bit. She's always, I always joke with her that she's burning the candle at both ends and the middle. And she's always like, then I'll have two candles.
I don't think that's how it works, but I don't know enough about candle science to dispute that.
Yeah, exactly. So with you being a fairly big Power Rangers nerd, one of the things we reached out a while ago, but because of the way I reached out, like the communication was just super delayed. We were trying to get you on for our Power Rangers episode when we were covering that for our nostalgia episodes. I've just been super curious for a long time. Like, what is your favorite rendition or version of the Power Rangers?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question, right? Because Power Rangers is a bad show, which I say with all of the love in the world, right? Like, it was such a huge part of my childhood. But like, if you were to pick out a random episode of the 1,000+ ones in the catalog, you're probably going to get something that doesn't necessarily hold together too well narratively. So I guess like there's two parts, right? There's my childhood nostalgia, which will always probably sort of focus in on that like late Mighty Morphin, early Zeo period, just because that's when my brain was most ready to take in and latch onto that. As an adult and going back and re-experiencing so much of it for the podcast, I think it's actually probably Lightspeed Rescue, because that was the one that, it's not one that's usually in contention when people are talking about like best series, but for something that holds together as a whole piece of work is definitely, I think, probably the best of the bunch. Like it drops the least balls along the way, and has some very fascinating dynamics involved. And I also think there's probably a little bit of my like, I also grew up watching a lot of Thunderbirds, and I really like often stories about heroes that aren't about punishing people that are having a bad time and are about just kind of helping people selflessly. And because the sort of like theme of that season is rescue workers, there's a lot of that involved. There's also demons and they punch the demons. So I don't want to like, downplay it or give anyone the wrong idea, but there's probably also just some thematic resonance there that hits a little harder for me. So it's probably Lightspeed Rescue. But yeah, it's interesting. The ones that people say are the best, I think you're probably remembering highlights, like little moments. And if you have to go back and watch a full season of, say, Power Rangers Time Force, it may be a little different to how you remember it.
Yeah, I clocked out a little ways into Zeo. I didn't understand TV marketing at the time, and so like I didn't understand syndication and all these other things, and it got to a point where it was just a bunch of repeats, and so I was like, I guess I'm out. I'm getting bored with this. I didn't realize like, oh, every Saturday is the new one. I just thought it was like every day was a new one, and so after so long, I was just like, oh man.
There's also, I don't think people fully understand how much Mighty Morphin there is. Like there are so many episodes of that show. So if you want to like try and get through it, especially like late Mighty Morphin, there's a real sort of interminable slog built into that. It's not just like, oh yeah, the Power Rangers get together and then Tommy turns up and then there's Lord Zed and then off goes Zeo. It's like, no, you're spending hundreds of hours doing some pretty inane stuff.
Like building up into Zeo when you have to get into the Alien Rangers, there's a really long arc going on there where they're kids and they're not morphing.
Yeah.
And then you have the Alien Rangers show up. Like there's a lot of stuff going on where you're just like, get to the fighting already. Like I've always had a love for Power Rangers, but like I just kind of fell out of love with the TV rotation of it because I was just like, I've seen this episode. There just wasn't anything new. And so I just kind of eventually fell out of it. But when Kyle brought back Power Rangers in 2015, like it just kind of reignited me, and I got these here behind me, my Power Morphers.
Oh yeah.
I regret not getting the Zords when they were brand new out of from Bandai, and those were like $100. Now you have to pay like $600 for them on eBay. But like what you're talking about with Lightspeed Rescue, I had a follow-up question of what's your favorite Zord, because to me that's a really important question. But what you had said about Lightspeed Rescue and being there and helping people and having a message of compassion for people, and not just fighting the bad guys and all this stuff, it ties in really nicely to another question I had when we talk about Inferno Girl Red, but I'm just going to get into it now. Have you seen Ladybug and Cat Noir? Because there's a very important tie-in that you guys have with that show at this point.
I haven't, so I'm very curious about this.
So Christina Vee, who is now apparently the official voice of Cassia in the Massive Verse, she voices Ladybug. Ladybug is kind of a blend of Power Rangers and Sailor Moon. Ladybug is the chosen guardian, and Cat Noir is her partner, and they save Paris every week. And the show it's very cheap. Like if you looked at it and you're like, there's no way this show is good. But at the end of like every episode, it has that really nice sentimental moment, like almost like TGIF, but not quite as corny. And there's one really amazing episode towards, I think it's like season 4, where a new character shows up. she falls in love with Marinette, Christina Vee's character, who is Ladybug. And throughout the entire episode, Marinette's just sitting there being like, oh man, who is this person in love with? It can't be the guy I'm in love with. If she's in love with the guy I'm in love with, the guy that I'm in love with is going to fall in love with her because she's amazing. And she's just like spiraling. And at the end of the episode, the girl who Marinette has been freaking out about the entire time admits that she's in love with Marinette. And Marinette just like has this moment of like, oh, that's incredible. Thank you so much for trusting me with your love.
Yeah.
And she can't reciprocate it because she's not attracted to her in that way.
Yeah.
But it's just this really beautiful moment.
That's so sweet.
And like that's such an encapsulation of like the heart of that show.
Well, I'm just about to have a child, my first child. So I'm very excited.
Very much
Thank
congrats.
you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Very excited to sort of like discover children's television and like what it is these days, and we'll sort of go into that stories. Because I think like what I've noticed in dipping out ever so slightly over the past sort of decade or two is that like the caliber of children's television, obviously not across the board, but it's really high. Like there's like just good TV that has also happened to be made for small children. Like I'm thinking particularly of like Steven Universe, for example. It's just like that. There's just like this depth and complexity and maturity of storytelling going on there that I just don't think anyone ever really would have tried back when I was, a younger person. So excited to see how much more of that is out there.
Yeah, I think Avatar: The Last Airbender really kind of changed a lot of at least American-made young person's television. Like Steven Universe is another one. You've got other shows like She-Ra that really came out and was just absolutely delightful. Have you guys pre-gamed Bluey yet? Are you aware of Bluey?
Oh, I'm very aware of Bluey, but I
being Australian, I would assume you were.
Totally. I think in some ways I've been like, you know what? There's going to be a time in my life when I've had way too much Bluey. So no need for me to get ahead of that, right? Like I feel like Bluey's coming for me like a freight train. And when that train hits, it's just going to be all Bluey all the time. So I'm just going to let that come when that happens and discover what everyone's like been so excited about at that time.
The other day at work, I was by myself and we have speakers that we can like blast music on while we're working in the warehouse. And I was really just feeling like being chill and mellow and calm. And so I played the soundtrack to Bluey off my phone and into the speakers. And like the music is just top notch from Jeff Bush. But yeah, Bluey is one that I'm the kind of person who could listen to the same song on loop for like 6 hours and not get tired of it. So like it takes a lot for me to get tired of something. And I can't speak for everyone, but like Bluey is something I could just watch all day and with my kids and just be like, yeah, this is a good time.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it.
The newest iteration of Blue's Clues was really good. The Snoopy show on Apple TV. It's very adorable and very cute. It's really good to watch. If you look for it, there's a lot of good kid show. And as much as people rag on it, the Teen Titans Go show.
Oh yeah.
When it pivots to like actually somewhat serious topics, it's hysterical. Like my wife and I were started watching it just because it was on back when we had cable, and then all of a sudden they had a show about the rideshare economy and other stuff will destroy economics. It was such a bizarre episode. We're like, are we actually getting an explanation? Because then they all start like, well, you don't need to buy a toothbrush, you can just rent mine. And then and then all of a sudden the city's destroyed because nobody has any possessions. They just kept renting the same thing.
So good.
It's so well done from time to time.
Speaking of Massiverse editor Michael, when on one of our trips to America, we were in Portland, and it was just so hot. And the place where we were staying didn't have air conditioning. So we're like, okay, let's just go to the movies. And we turned up. And Teen Titans Go to the Movies was in the cinema. And we're like, yeah, sure, why not? And we hurt ourselves with how hard we're laughing. And there is some like jokes in there about comic stuff that were like really deep cut stuff that was like on the periphery of my knowledge, and it's kind of my job to be across this stuff. So yeah, I'm all about that. So I'll definitely be watching a lot more of that show as well. It's so sharp. So yeah, big fan of that one.
How did Christina Vee become the voice of Cassia Inferno Girl Red?
That one's purely a Kyle one, to be honest. Kyle, again, one of those people that knows.
I'm shocked.
Everybody, right? And we were just kind of batting around names, and Kyle was like, "Oh, like maybe I could ask Christina," and I was like, "Yeah, please, absolutely, that'd be great." I think like Christina has a few sort of like overlaps into our world anyway, because I think she was on Power Rangers Hyperforce, which was like a tabletop role playing show that was actually like officially licensed.
She was the Black Ranger in that one.
Yeah, so like, and that's considered canon, and I think certainly both Kyle and myself and the folks at Boom have gone out of our way to like try and like, no, that all happened. That's all part of the universe. So she is a Power Ranger. So I also just liked having that sort of like little connection as well. And of course, she's just like wildly talented, right? So when Kyle was like, maybe Christina, I was like, yeah, okay. If you want to get a fantastic voice actress, I won't argue with that. Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, you would know Christina Vee as Darkness from Konosuba.
No, I would know her as Sailor Mars.
Yeah, Sailor Mars is the more common one, yes. But I'm just trying to think in Alex terms.
Yes, but yes, that's what I was looking up. I was like, wait, that name sounds really familiar. It's Darkness.
So you're actually, at time of recording, the last issue for Immortal Legend Batman has not come out, but you are co-writing a Super Sentai-inspired Batman Elseworld story. How did that come about?
So it all really comes back to our man Dan Mora. So it was 2019 or 2020. And Dan was just chucking up on his Instagram, hey, here's all the Bat family, but like redesigned as Toku characters. No one asked him to do that. That was purely just him for the love of the game, just doing some stuff. And Kyle and I saw those, and we were just kind of like talking about how amazing they were. And we were like, man, if DC isn't on the phone with him right now being like, hey, man, make this a series, please, then they're mad. And then we're like, well, what if we just pitched it? So we reached out to Dan and like, hey, could we pitch with these designs of yours? And he was like, yeah, because, Dan's just the friendliest, nicest man on planet Earth. And yeah, we worked together. I put together like this huge pitch deck building out the world. Because like we knew we obviously wanted to bring in some of that Toku elements. And so part of the pitch deck was kind of explaining to DC editorial, like, here are some core like tenets of Tokusatsu, not just like visually, but into storytelling that we'd want to bring through. But also we don't want it to just be that. We want to sort of bring in some other elements to make it a bit of a mix. So looking at that sort of like lone Western kind of influence, and then obviously a lot of science fiction because it's set in the future. We kind of blended all that together and laid it all out, and pitched it to DC with the idea that Dan would be drawing the book, and they were like, we love it, let's do it. And then DC went through a huge round of editorial layoffs, and absolutely everyone who we'd been pitching to on the book was out the door. And we actually had no contacts at DC anymore, so book dead. And I thought that was absolutely the end of it. Then 3 or 4 years later, probably, it must have been, Matt Levine, who used to be at Boom Studios and used to work with Kyle on the Power Rangers books, ended up at DC. And, we had been doing all the Ultraman stuff at Marvel. And he just kind of reached out to us and was like, hey guys, like, do you have anything that you'd like to pitch? Because I love working with you guys. I'll do it some more. And Kyle and I sort of looked at each other and like, well, there's this thing that is kind of ready to go. And we sent it through to Matt, and he's like, I love this, but Dan, in the sort of like intervening years, had rightfully and thankfully been identified as one of the greatest artists alive. And his schedule was just totally booked up. So we wouldn't be able to get him on the book, and we'd need to have someone else sort of like draw it. So we went to him and like, hey, this is a bit odd, we know, but can we do this series but not have you as the artist and just kind of use the designs? And Dan, again, just being the nicest guy in the world, said, absolutely, no problem, very happy, but I'm going to do covers. I want to do more character designs if more characters come up. And also I want to do a backup. And we're like, dude, they're not going to let you do that. You're so busy. You're drawing like 4 comics a month. And he said, no, I want to do this. I'll do this. And we said, all right. So from there, it was just a case of figuring out, who would be drawing the sort of like main section of the book. And I knew who I wanted because I'd been working with Erica on Inferno Girl Red and knew that she was just like perfect for this because of her style and her inspirations. And we sort of suggested to Matt Levine, our editor, like, what if it was Erica? And Matt said, oh, I'm so glad you said that because I wanted Erica, but I didn't want to like steal her from Inferno Girl Red and have that be a weird thing. So we were all on the same page with that. And at that point, I was like, well, if it's Erica, no one colors Erica like Igor, who's that colorist on Inferno Girl Red. And there's no one that I like working better with my dialogue than Becky Carey, our letterer in Inferno Girl Red. So what if it was just kind of the whole Inferno Girl Red team? And Matt said, yep, happy to do that. And we were kind of off to the races. So it was really just like resurrecting this thing from years and years ago that was so sure was dead, and bringing it back to life and bringing over the full Inferno Girl Red team and kicking this thing off, finally.
So does DC have any like specific rules when you're doing a reinterpretation of Batman? Specifically, can you kill Jason Todd again if you really want it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are like rules, right? I think anything would be a conversation with the editor about like, is this a good story decision?
Yeah.
And I think like if you were to do something that was like, this doesn't really seem to fit with the heart of Batman, unless it was again like a very intentional, like, smart subversion, I suspect that, there'd be conversations. But I was trying to run through it in my head. I don't think there was anything that we got told no in this. And there's some pretty wild stuff, to be honest. I was kind of expecting maybe a little bit of pushback when we had our gender bent Poison Ivy in issue 4, and nothing at all. They were all about it. So yeah, no, they've been just completely supportive. We went huge. Like there was a lot of big swings. I think it's very imaginative and obviously like in elements very Toku, and they're totally about it all.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. By the time this episode comes out, all 6 issues will be available. I'm assuming a trade paperback will be in the works at this point as well.
I think there's a hardcover in May will be first up.
Oh, fantastic.
If you're not into individual issues, you can do that. I've been reading it on DCU, but I have been picking up the individual issues as well because someday I would like to meet Matt and have him sign a few things.
I'll be back in that part of the world one day. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, if anyone's interested, it's definitely up there with some of the favorite stuff I've ever done in comics.
Awesome.
I've said this before, like it truly feels like a creator-owned book in the latitude that we have with it. Like there's just, as I said, like there's been no no's, there's been no don't do that. And because we're building a universe from the ground up, like obviously we're pulling familiar elements in from DC lore, but it's its own history and world and characters. And because we're working with the Inferno Girl Red team and we have like such a rhythm, it's just like, oh, we're just doing more of our like creator own series and it just happens to be about Batman. So yeah, I'm very proud of how it's come out.
No, I love the look of it. I haven't read any of them yet. I am really terrible about reading comic books just because I never quite know when to start. And then by the time that I want to jump on something, it's like, well, there should be a hardcover coming out. And then it turns out that it's like 6 months later or something. the only real comics I've in the last like 10 years that I've kept up on was Amanda Connor's run on Harley Quinn, because I love Amanda Connor.
Yep.
You can't see it from where my camera is, but we had my friend for my wedding bought us the Joker and Harley Quinn like wedding cover that Amanda Connor did.
Oh,
So it's
cool.
framed on the
Yeah.
wall. And Something is Killing the Children. It's the other comic book I really keep on. But
Yeah.
when Josh told me about Immortal Batman, I'm like, okay. And it's not like
say
issue
more right
7
now.
Yeah, it's like not issue 75 with like the third set of writers, and you got to like, okay, start at issue 41, but here's some backstory when this new writer takes over. It's great now. So yeah, I mean, the look of them is amazing, and I'm really happy to hear there's a hardcover, because then I'll pass it to Josh to have you sign for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's worth saying for everyone as well, is just it is a total like fresh jumping on point, as much as we're sort of like pulling different ideas from DC lore. Like it's its own completely separate thing. There's no tie-ins to events or anything like that. It's just you pick it up, you start at the start, you read, and then off you go.
There are some deep cuts though. Like you guys have Harper Row as the first Nightwing, I believe, is and then Stephanie Brown is the first Robin.
Not the first, but the sort of previous. Yeah.
Yeah, the prior, because it's the Nightwing, Batman, and Robin Immortals are legacy characters, so they've been going forever, but new people take on the mantles.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and there's definitely some sort of like wider DC elements woven into it. And I think what I can say too is like, I spent a lot of time thinking about the world building of this universe, and I like to build things kind of 2 or 3 layers deeper than I think we'll actually need, so that if the story happens to pivot in a direction, or, if we happen to get to do more in the future, it's not shallow and we kind of run out of room. So there's been a lot of thinking about like the machinery of this whole like galactic civilization and like who else is out there and what they're up to. But even down to like you get little bits of young Bruce being read a Detective Chimp mystery by his robot butler Alfred,
Nice.
which was like delightful and cute and a lot of fun. So like lots of little things like that sort of like sprinkled throughout.
So let's start talking Inferno Girl Red.
Mm.
Book 2 is being distributed to Kickstarters. It's coming out on comic book shelves. Issue 3 should also be out by the time this episode drops. I believe that's coming out in mid-February.
I think issue 3's out.
It might be. I haven't been to the comic shop yet this weekend, so I don't know. But it will definitely have been out by the time this episode comes out at the end of February. But at the end of Inferno Girl Red, book 1, Cassia's powers, as we've learned, are tied to like her self-belief, her self-esteem. As a writer, how did you challenge yourself to ensure the logic fits within like the ebbs and flows of the story in book 2?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I like to build around theme in a lot of ways. And I think that Inferno Girl was always about the idea of belief. I think, when I was starting on the series, it was very much about what it's like to be a young person today and kind of the state of the world, and the idea that to improve things and for things to get better, it requires remarkable and radical action. And that requires remarkable and radical self-belief, almost to the point of like delusion, because the odds are kind of stacked against you, but also getting lost in delusion and getting lost in self-belief is also an increasingly dangerous thing right now. So walking that line between like belief and hope and faith, and not like self-delusion and like sort of getting lost in your own story, or like, not appreciating that you're only like sort of like one small cog in the greater machine, and that every part of that machine is worthwhile, is definitely been the core of it. So book 1 is very much about Cassia, who's had something of a difficult life, particularly because of the experiences of her mother and how they've sort of what things like when she's growing up, having to find that self-belief enough to power this, bracelet and wield this power. And then book 2 gets much more into the sort of flip side of that, is like once you've accepted that your belief can be transformative and magical in this instance, how do you not let that take you down the wrong path and think that, you're the chosen one and the main character of the story. So yeah, starting from that place, I think every other decision sort of falls out from that, and everything else is kind of built around the mechanics of that theme. And I think if you start from that place, you're always going to be, I think, heading in the right direction. And obviously, you're going to still want to make sort of authentic character choices, and you're going to want your world building to hold together, and hopefully that there's like understandable and logical character decisions being made, etc., etc. But I think they should all be in service of that sort of like grander idea that you're trying to explore.
One of the things that based off this conversation that I actually wanted to mention to you, because I did do the homework, I read the books in preparation.
Thank you.
Is I love how supportive everyone is around Cassia. It's so endearing that you don't. Well, I'm like, one of the things I dislike about world building is when it starts becoming very obvious, like, okay, so these are her friends and these are her enemies and these are people who are just jerks. But like everybody seems to just have this collective supportive not only of her journey as they find out, some of her secrets, or she's just like, I gotta go, book club, they need help and people help her, or she's got to do like a heist and people are like, okay, so here's what we can do to try to help you out. I absolutely love that. But I did have a quick question. Because the Inferno Girl Red is a bracelet, at any point did you ever think of making it like a belt so that it was more like a morpher?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We kind of went through a few different. I think this is before there was even visual design. We're just kind of talking about different options.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, belt is morpher. Belt is also like Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
And I think we're always, even with the Immortal Legend Batman, we're always sort of like walking this line between like what is inspiration that can then help us like reinvent and build new things versus what's just us taking and copying and like just being like, oh, that works in Japan, we'll just take that. And it always, I think, should feel new. So I think even on the level of like, okay, this will be a transformation device, let's try and put our own spin on it. And part of it honestly was also a bit like, this is at its core intended to be a series for like young girls or YA readers. And the idea of it being a bracelet just felt like something that would be more, desirable or authentic to their experience. Like, I struggle to imagine a lot of young girls wearing like huge chunky belt buckles.
Nah, probably not.
Probably not. But then wearing like a nice and cool and sort of mystical bracelet that then transforms into like a huge chunky gauntlet, like that feels that felt more like it would be in the space. So that was kind of where I was trying to get to with that.
Yeah, no, I actually really like it. It's just, and I love that the series just kind of starts kind of just breakneck of like, she's in the car with her mom. Here's a quick little backstory. This superhero exists. And then she gets to school, to university. It is university, right? Or is it high school? No, it's university.
It's a high school, but it's also like, it's an alternate universe. Their education system is a bit different. Like, it's a whole other thing. So, yeah.
And then, like, she gets the Hal Jordan treatment of this magical thing just slaps on her wrist. And her mom's like, listen, there's a gesture and you scream. Go with it.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, Mom, you have a little bit of explaining to do, but I'm invested. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, there's two elements to that. I think one of it is, I wanted it to be a story about a mother and daughter, especially like book one, and we sort of get away from that a little bit in book two, but the idea is it's kind of a larger running thing. And it didn't want it to be about like, oh, these two, like, they don't get along and there's this friction and she has to hide her secret from her parents, because I feel like we've done that, right? But like a partnership between this mother and daughter who've had to sort of rely on each other their whole lives, that felt richer to me. And building in a connection for her mother to the previous Inferno Girl Red that allowed us to sort of get both her and Cassia much more immediately into the story. So we don't have to spend too long being like, what is this? What are these powers? Like, what's a superhero? It's like, no, like, we can get through a lot of that and also have that be character and story relevant and just kind of like shoot through. Because ultimately, this comes back to like me wanting to do something that was like a YA book that could hopefully bring in younger readers to comics, I didn't want to ask too much of them in terms of like trusting me and just like slogging through some stuff to get to the good stuff. I wanted to ask a lot of them in terms of like themes I thought they could handle and like, character relationships and stuff like that. But I wanted to make it as accessible and exciting as possible so that they're more likely to be pulled into the story and then, ideally be pulled into comics in general.
Yeah, I also like that there's like some show don't kind of tell that thing. Like, I didn't realize for a little while, maybe like 2/3 of through the first book, that Cassia had vitiligo. Yeah, like
Absolutely.
yeah, I thought it was at first I was like, I thought it was just a shading because in the car and this other places. And I'm like, oh, maybe she has like a little port wine stain thing. But then I was realizing like the second or third time she transforms, I'm like, wait a second, it's across her arms too. I'm like, because like no one mentions it. It's like
Yeah.
not like she walks in saying, hi, my name is Cassie, I'm here, and yes, I have this. It's there, and it's just a part of her life. No one questions it. It's just it adds to kind of like her backstory, but also is like an artistic decision that just exists in the world. And I really like that.
Totally. Yeah, I think that was actually like way back in the earliest phases when I was chatting through all this with Erica. She was doing all these different character designs, and one of them was the one that we settled on immediately as being the character's casting design, and that was just a part of it from the start. And I was like, great, but we'll just sort of like bring that in. And the more I thought about it, the more I felt like it made a lot of sense in that, like, it's just another small thing that's part of Cassia's life that probably at some point made things a little harder for her. Like, she just looked a little different in a way that was obvious and, probably wasn't the biggest of things to deal with, but I'm sure there was like a little bit of bullying. And it was just like another small chip in her armor that led to that sort of like disenchantment that she has going into book one. But yeah, I also didn't want to make it it's just, that's not how life works, right? Like, you don't walk into every room that you walk into announcing yourself and your whole deal all throughout your life, right? Like, and even, I like to think about when you meet new people, because often I think you're talking about earlier, you don't want to jump into a series like midway through and it's like issue 76 or whatever, and I fully get that. But I also think that life is a little bit like that sometimes, where you meet someone and they've had their whole life going on and they've clearly like been through some stuff and it shaped them in different ways, and you're not going to have any sense of that really. And if you get to know that person over time, some of that might unpack, right? You might grow closer with them and learn more about their history and what they've been through and all that sort of stuff. Or you might not. You might just like, maybe you cross paths with them for one moment and then you never see them again. And both of those things are entirely valid. And that's how life works. And I think in some ways you can kind of trust readers to have that same experience with characters as they do with people. It's like you encounter them, you don't get a like breakout box of like statistics. So here's everything about them so you can catch up. It's like, no, that's a person. And to whatever extent you need to get to know them, you will. And to whatever extent you don't, you won't. And some stuff may just be inaccessible to you as information forever, because that's also just how life works sometimes. And that's okay.
One more thing, Josh, and then I'll let you say something. In the book two, Cassia briefly gets like a peek behind like, the veil of like the bad guys that are out there. And I love any time that there's a villain who's very affable, who is very like very manner. Like I love Alan Rickman. His, in Die Hard, Hans Gruber, amazing, so sweet. I mean, not what he's doing, but he's so personable, and he's like, he has this list of rules, and he's following them, and he's charming. And Cassia gets to experience, and it's this very nice moment. And it's like, so it's not like the bad guy, immediately evil, sinister plan. It's just very much like, hey, how you doing? Like, everything going all right? Let's talk. Like, would you like a soda? Sit down, have some dinner. I love that kind of villain where something's off, but it eases you into it without something super like rah, like danger to danger to danger. It's like, our plans are at odds, but maybe we can talk about it.
Totally. I love a sort of charismatic, compelling villain. And one that was in my mind as I was doing this is Definitely not the best villain in the history of cinema, but maybe my personal favorite. And that is Xander Drax from the 90s Phantom movie, played by Treat Williams.
Yeah.
And he's just like the most affable, charismatic, friendly guy. And he's having fun. He murders a bunch of people, but he's having a delightful time while he's doing it. It's just like he's living his truth, like he is blissful in his existence because he was meant to be a no, I'm not going to try and say that again, villain. And he gets to be it and he loves it. And to the point where Treat Williams, who played Xander Drax, I was originally talking to Erica about like taking who Treat Williams was as of a couple of years ago as the like sort of visual designer as an older man, with the idea of like if Inferno Girl Red ever happens as a live action thing, absolutely want Treat Williams. But unfortunately, Mr. Williams like died very recently. And I took that probably a little harder than I should have. And Erica sort of had a bit of a different vision anyway about him being a sort of like smaller, like quieter guy, which I think ended up working really well. So I think it all sort of worked out for this in that way. But yeah, I love that sort of villain. I think it's just, like villains can be evil and do evil stuff, and we get it. We know how this stuff needs to be. But if we're going to spend time with them, they should also be like interesting and a little inviting. You kind of want to get to know them a little bit more, even if like what you learn won't be good if it's a good villain. So yeah, that was the thinking there.
The introduction scene with the big bad of this project so far. I really don't want to give too much away, but like you give it away on page 13 more or less. But just reading that dialogue and like seeing what happened, I immediately went back and reread the dialogue because I was like, wait, no, but he was so nice. And then I reread it and I was like, oh, he could be meaning a lot of different things here. I really got to know, was that one of those things where you were writing it down and you're like, this is good. This is really good.
Honestly, yeah, I was pretty happy with it, to be honest. I don't want to tip my own horn.
That's one of those moments where you like write it down and you pat yourself on the back. You're like, I did good work today.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is just that, it's almost like tried to say, but all villains are like the heroes of their own story, right? And like this villain isn't so much a person as it is like just an elemental force. And all the things that it says here are true. Like it wants peace, but what it thinks peace is and what it needs to get there is not something that anybody else should want. But it's extremely earnest in that belief of just like, I would love things to just be like peaceful and quiet and conflict free, and no one has to fight each other, and we can all just be like super chill. Like that is 100% his position, and that is all authentic. It's just like once you understand what that really means, then that, obviously the sinister element of it comes through. But I think having that, rather than it being sort of just like this raw, angry, I want to destroy everything for the sake of destruction, like that's not terribly interesting to me. But the inverse provides some texture.
One of my favorite moments in book 2 is when Lillian and Harriet just have a quick little chat with Cassia, and they're like, hey, we understand tomorrow is a big day, but tonight we watch a movie. And you have just this, you and Erica have this one panel that's just wonderfully laid out, and there's popcorn, they're holding hands, they're just sitting close to each other, enjoying each other's company without saying anything. It's a wonderfully warm scene. I got to know in your head, what movie are they watching?
Oh, that's a good question. Usually I have an answer for that sort of thing, and I'm not sure.
I was really curious because there wasn't even like a little Easter egg of like what they might be watching. And so I'm like, I guess they're watching the Three Amigos. I don't know.
That's something that Erica and I would like talk about, or even just have like, you get a little snippet of dialogue. So like, if you know the movie, you get it. But to be honest, I don't think I have one for that one. I think I was just so like in the moment of like.
The moment is more important than what they're watching.
Yeah. Like what it meant for for those friends and stuff like that. So Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's a wonderful choice because, again, like the moment is more important than what they're watching. Like you're trying to
Totally.
evoke an emotion from the thing that they are doing, not the thing they're watching. So like I respect the restraint on that too.
It's very much just like they're there to like hold space for Cassia, and just like be there and be supportive in the way that doesn't have to be like, we're going to interrogate you to try and understand all your problems and solve all your problems, knowing like what you've got on right now is a lot and there's not a lot we can do to help, but what we can do is just encourage you to take a break and be here for you if you need us. And yeah, that felt like a moment of like what friendship really is oftentimes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, quiet moment, and I think it's extraordinarily relatable. So I mean, I applaud you
Thank you.
guys again for the restraint, but I was just really curious if you had like made that choice, but you're like, but they're watching The Dark Knight. I don't know.
Yeah, again, like it's such a me thing to have done that, but in this one instance, no.
I also love that the person who's perhaps least interested in social media has to attempt to use social media to build support.
Absolutely.
Because reading that was as awkward as I felt that she must have been in that moment. So like the
Right?
art is perfect, and also is the paneling with the clipped dialogue, and the body language. That was just great. I love it because like, listen, I need support. I'm Inferno Girl. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in, I pride myself on being able to write a monologue, right? Like write a very articulate, compelling, like properly paced run of dialogue. But I think that's often not always how life is. And I think in that moment in particular, talking about appreciating that you're not like the main character of life and you're just a cog in the machine. I think both Cassia and the people around her is like, oh, you'll do this because this is what we need, and you're in front of red. You're the hero, and the point of it is like, no, that's actually not what she's good at, and it's okay because you don't have to be good at everything, and that's part of what being in a community is. Like, you can all have different skills, and putting Cassia in a position where she's just like face planning so hard publicly because she jumped into something that she really shouldn't have. She really should have asked for help from somebody else. Um, and it's also all about this is just how story structure works in some ways, but in a run of stuff just like not going well for Cassia. So I actually went a little back and forth on like, how hard should she face plant here? Like, should she really mess it up? And I think there's probably like one version of drafting the scene where it was like a little more, ambiguous as to how it's gone over. But eventually I arrived at like, no, if this is going to do what it needs to and be authentic, she needs to like face plant. And it's hard to write in some ways because you're writing like intentionally badly in the sense that you're communicating someone communicating poorly, which is its own sort of like weird little challenge.
So I've seen through some massive verse social media posts and other things where you talk about Cassia's confidence and where it can kind of become, and it builds towards something toxic.
Mm,
I might have misinterpreted certain things as I was reading through it, but that's kind of the beauty of reading. You kind of get to build your own story. But when Cassia starts talking with Thomas and with Dr. Caro about like, oh, it's my destiny to do these things. I have to believe it's
mm,
my destiny. I was feeling as I was reading it, I was feeling like that was more her being just very desperate to just hold on to some kind of belief in herself to keep the power going.
absolutely.
Whereas, maybe some of the other things I was getting a little confused by was more like an overconfidence and like the dangers of that as well, which I think like maybe there's a little in between.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
if you wouldn't,
yeah, in some ways, it's no, you're absolutely correct. And what it is, I think, is a version of overconfidence that isn't really confidence, right? And I think you're actually like getting it exactly right when you're talking about she had to find a way to make this gauntlet work and find this self belief, right? And when she realized it was magic, that opened up a mental pathway for herself, which is like, oh, okay, it's magic. I'm a superhero. And obviously, not thinking literally this is a story, but like I'm the main character. And if that's true, then I could do this. And that allowed her to get there, but it's not actually a true confidence because she's relying on these lies to allow herself to have confidence rather than the confidence of, I'm not the most important person in the world. Everything isn't always going to work out for me. But despite that, I believe I'm worthwhile. And I believe that I have a lot to give. And I believe that things may go right. And I think that's the like real confidence and sort of like truth that Cassia kind of needs to get to. And she's just not there in this moment. She's taken a shortcut that is causing all sorts of problems for herself and the people around her. So yeah, it's like an interesting like nuanced position, right? Because it's like, yes, it is overconfidence, but it's an overconfidence that comes from insecurity, which I think is something that could happen in the real world. So yeah, no, you're totally on it.
Hooray for media literacy.
Yay!
Just one really big compliment I have to pay to Erica and Igor as well, and like to you with your script. I don't know how splash pages work in a script, but in the digital copy of Inferno Girl Red Book 2, page 114 is a big splash 2-pager. You've got Cassie on the left, you've got Thomas on the right, the Inferno Girl logo in the background. Beautiful, just amazing art that like I have a nice space right here where that could go if I could get a frame of that. Beautiful artwork that is just, it's consistent throughout, but like that page in particular, that's like the show stealer for me.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? And that's actually a product of something I've never done before, which is for a stretch of pages, be like, here's broadly what we need to achieve. Erica, you get there however you want to. Because normally I will have a very detailed, like beat by beat script. And I'll always say, especially with Erica, people I've worked like closely with, be like, this is totally up for reinterpretation. If you want to do this another way, that's totally cool. I just wanted to give you a version of how it could be quite precisely so that, you know, I'm not doing my job and you have to do extra work to figure it out, right? Is kind of often my perspective. But I knew that Erica could really cut loose with action. So I knew we'd get to a point where there was this big final fight. And I also knew that there would be a character speaking to a wider population in a way that would allow me to run some dialogue over the scene that didn't necessarily have to be in very specific places. So I knew that there's a little fungible there. And I just kind of like trusted Erica to be able to like maximize those pages. And in some ways I trusted myself to be like, okay, we're just going to let Erica do it. And then I'm going to figure out what the dialogue and stuff is for those scenes and trust that I can make that still character stuff that makes sense and works without it feeling sort of like too hokey or feel like it's been reverse engineered in that way. So it was a real like kind of a leap of faith on my part, I think. And yeah, obviously it really paid off because there's never been a time when I haven't trusted Erica in a way that, you know, could potentially be dangerous, and it hasn't paid off far better than I could have imagined.
So the last Inferno Girl direct question, or maybe indirect question I have is fairly early on in the book as well. Dr. Caro, when we enter the dragon's lair.
Yes.
Dr. Caro is not playing too subtly with people who know what's coming up in Supermassive and future stories. There are a lot of little teases here and there where you're just like, not yet. And like, I'm working on things. And I feel like those are really nice little winks and nods to the massive verse fan base.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Confirmed. Yeah. I think we're in an interesting situation where, like, you know, I've had the broad strokes of Inferno Girl Red in my head for, gosh, years and years and years at this point. And when the, you know, Inferno Girl Red came first, and then the Massive Verse as an idea came a little later, but because of all sorts of like production related reasons, the massive verse element of it all just got way ahead of where Inferno Girl Red is. And what that ended up being was just a cool way to like give people little teasers at like what's ahead and what might be some of the biggest strands running through this thing. And it has been fun to be like, okay, aware that some people out there have a little bit more idea of like where some of this is headed and find a way to balance acknowledging that and maybe even like leaking towards it slightly without doing anything that's going to make someone who's just reading Inferno Girl Red feel like they're missing something. Because I'd like never want that. In sort of like the way we're talking about before, one of the huge goals of Inferno Girl Red is there's book 1, there's book 2, hopefully there's more, and all you ever have to do is read book 1 and book 2 in that order. If you want some more of the supermassive stuff to sort of like fill out some extra details, great, go for it. Obviously very supportive of that. But with that goal of like bringing people into comics, I didn't want to end up in that, oh, we're renumbering and it's back to a volume 1 and you have to figure out which volume 1 goes in which order, like that's a big no-no for me on this series. So yeah, want to also make sure it stays that straightforward.
There's no book 1 and hopefully book 3. You're not going to Netflix me and like cancel this on a cliffhanger. When's book 3 coming out? When's the Kickstarter? Okay, I'll back it this time. I was just scrolling through the Kickstarter credit thank you section. I saw Josh's name in there. I want to know how I can get my name in there because my name starts with an A. It'd be much earlier in the alphabet.
Yeah, way earlier for sure. Yeah, listen, like anything in comics, I hope it happens. We'll see. It's certainly my intent, and I think what I can say is that it's very hard doing it in an independent book. Like the market is not, unless you're like, you've already built a huge fan base at Marvel and DC, you kind of brought that back, which isn't a knock to anyone who has done that. Like there's a reason why like Tinian has brought so many people over. It's because he did incredible work at those bigger publishers and people rightly want more of that incredible work. But we are not in that place. And that's why we've had to go the Kickstarter route. And, that's always a possibility for the future. I will say in this moment, it's hard. Like it's been, both campaigns have had pretty massive hiccups along the way. And I think I probably take that a little harder than I should because I feel a big sense of responsibility to all the people that supported us. And in this moment, the idea of doing it again is very like, my heart. Like, I don't know if I can do it, but I'm sure I'll recover from that. And, part of it is just like what Erica's doing and what she can sustain. Very famously in the first one, we almost ruined Erica's career because she injured her illustrating hand so badly she was in hospital. And we had to sort of like ease her back into it. And that's part of the reason book 2 took a lot longer, is because like when that started to creep in as a possibility again, we had to be like, no, slow down. We'll delay. That's fine. Don't do permanent damage to the thing that you need to do to be an artist. So let's take it easy. All of which is to say, there are a lot of factors. And I certainly feel, and I suspect Erica feels, that our dream is to just keep doing this, until we reach an ending that we have in mind some ways down the track. And yeah, we'll see if that happens. I certainly want it to be. It may even end up being a thing that's like, Erica and I have to sort of like do something else, like, Immortal Legend Batman, and then come back to Inferno Girl Red for a little bit, and then onto something else, even if that further slows down the process, just to make it sustainable and healthy for everyone involved. But I love Inferno Girl Red. I'm so proud of the book. I'm quite confident Erica feels the same way as well. And I love everyone I work with on the book. So yeah, if I had my way, we'd be doing this for quite some time.
All right, so we're going to set up a GoFundMe for Erica's robotic hands.
Yeah,
so we can get the artwork out there quicker.
Turn her into Violet Evergarden.
Yes.
I mean, we have a very straightforward rating system with anything we review. It's a must see, must read, must watch, or pass. every edition of Inferno Girl Red, Supermassive, Massive Verse, I deem as a must read. Like
Thank you.
I cannot praise or encourage enough of this. And then if ever there is a Inferno Girl Red Book 3 Kickstarter, I guess you can count on 3 donations and submissions, because I've been inspired by our friend Marty over at Nerd Initiative. I'll make my own personal one, and then I'll probably do a physical copy under the name of the podcast, and I'll donate that to our library. And then Alex will be donating as well.
That's very kind. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I mean, seeing there's a few people that donate to libraries, that means the world to me. I've certainly donated a few copies to libraries myself, because very much the idea is, like, all the people who supported the book from the comics world, like, I love and so appreciative of. But definitely the hope is that it just gets into the hands of some younger people who, haven't had a lot of experience with comics necessarily, and pick it up and, like, it blows their mind, and they're through the gateway drug to the rest of this world that I love so much. So yeah, anything that serves that purpose means a lot to me.
So are there any multimedia plans or concepts that you guys have put together? I mean, if there's an NDA or you just can't get into it, I just feel like if you're bringing Christina Vee into things, there must be some kind of plan.
Oh, there's not, to be honest. Although what I will say is that part of this is Kyle's influence. We're big on future-proofing, right? So, like, I wouldn't have said yes to Christina Vee doing the voice for that little promotional video that we did if I wasn't also comfortable with the idea of, working with her in the future on this, if that were to ever happen. And also if obviously Christina was, happy to do so and happy with what we could contribute to her for that. So yeah, would love that. Nothing in the works right now. Like anything, I think if a few years ago, there was a period of time where if you did something in Image Comics, all sorts of people from all sorts of places would reach out to you and talk to you about the possibility of things. And oftentimes those things would sort of evaporate into nothingness. And there was a little bit of that with Inferno Girl Red. But yeah, I think the sort of like the consensus at the moment, along with all the other woes of the entertainment industry, is like, oh, superheroes are kind of on the decline in terms of adaptation potential. But I think that's probably a little misguided, and we'll see if any of that changes. Something that I'm sure I could allude to ever so slightly is a small group of people that include a few people from the Massiverse side of things have floated the earliest possible ideas about potential really independent-minded, small-scale, like video gamey type things. And that's something that we're like in the earliest possible stages of consideration about. So like this will be years and years if anything does happen. And it's purely just from a like passion we have for certain types of things. And in the same way that there's the Massiverse like fighting card game that's there, like we're just, big card and board game people. So when that opportunity come up, we kind of moved heaven and earth to make all that happen, not because, it was a tremendously lucrative thing to do, but because we just want cool stuff out there. So that's on my mind. I think that Inferno Girl Red that's something that we're thinking about in the earliest, most sort of nebulous sorts of ways. And yeah, Inferno Girl Red lends itself to that. There's Cassie's story, which is obviously, hopefully, people think is cool, but a lot more to Inferno Girl Red as a larger mythos and idea. And I think it lends itself to breaking away into different realms in a way that doesn't become, oh, it's a spin-off or you have to experience this thing. It's just another story from this universe that if you experience both, great. There's some like connective tissue that you might appreciate, but if you only experience one or the other, that's still completely independently fulfilling. So that would be our goal if anything like that happens.
And that is the beauty of the Massiverse, is you could literally just read one book and be happy, or you can like imbibe in all of it and be like, holy cow, look at what these guys are doing. I think the Massiverse is just incredible.
Thank you. That was the goal. Yeah.
So one last question I have, which is like the real question, the one question that is the reason why you're here. When am I getting my book? No, I'm kidding. No, I don't mean to be like I'm hounding you. No, I'm patiently awaiting my hard
It's coming.
copy.
I promise it's coming.
And I'm sure mine is going to take some time because I've got the pin, I've got the lithograph that's coming. So like, I'm sure there's reasons why it's delayed. I'm not trying to be that person. I just wanted to try and be
update
funny.
coming soon. And what I can say is the extras have proven again complicated in their own curly little way. That's delaying some of that stuff. Which again, there's always something.
I want to know when Josh is getting he backed the tier for a personal phone call from Christina Vee as Cassia.
That's cameo.com/Christina Vee.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. We won't be on Christina's case if she chooses to make any money that way. I'll support that for sure.
My wife might steal my phone and keep that message forever if that's the case. Yeah. So Matt, thank you so much for being here. If history repeats itself, we'll release this episode and like 9 months later, we will receive the Kickstarter for Inferno Girl Red Book 3. But I'm not going to hold our breath, and I don't want to wish that on you, especially with the newborn, which again, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you for having me, guys. It's always lovely to chat. Always a friendly space. I appreciate you having me back on to talk all that stuff. And yeah, if anyone hasn't, make sure you go grab Inferno Girl Red Books 1 and 2. Will be on shelves quite soon. And obviously book 1's already there. And Immortal Legend Batman is going to be hitting the hardcover in I think May it was.
So excited for that.
Yeah, and it's like it's the same team. Obviously, Kyle's an editor on one and co-writer on the other. But if you enjoy one, I'm so sure you're going to enjoy the other. So yeah, try them out.
Yeah, please let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Oh yeah, I'm on the platform that I will forever call Twitter. I'm Matthew Groom, 1T in Matthew. That's pretty much it, really. I have a website. It's mattgroom.com. Again, Matt with 1T. That has a little message box. So if you want to reach me, you can do it there. That's a way to do it. That's it. I'm on Instagram, but I don't really use it. So I wouldn't recommend anyone finding me on there.
All right. So Alex, please let everyone know where they can join the conversation about comics and other things.
That would be our Discord. It's tsmackpod@gmail.com. There's a link down below. It's where we post news, our newest episodes or Friends of the Show episodes. And it's where we can have good conversations. Like the fact that Josh apparently is not excited that Scrubs season whatever is coming out soon.
Season 9/10, yeah.
Not excited.
I'm over the nostalgia reboot everything now. Like I just give me something new. I love Shrinking. Shrinking is fantastic. Bill Lawrence is a wonderful writer, but Shrinking is more than what I need.
I could certainly appreciate that. I think there's you could do good versions of it where you are doing something new and inventive from an old foundation, but I think we've seen a lot of not that.
I hope it's good. I really do. It's just more of the same from Hollywood, and I want more new stuff, new creative stuff that I didn't know I didn't want.
Fully appreciate that.
Or that I didn't know that I did want. That's a double negative.
That's a good point, yeah.
So please follow Matt on all the social media platforms. Hit that link in our episode description to join our Discord. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, YouTube at Talking Smack Pod. Email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Thank you to Leo Allen for our musical themes, Beppo for our original avatars, Richard Studios for our Ricky avatar. Please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice. Thank you for listening, Matt. Thank you again for the time. Alex, there's a show out there people should be watching. What is it?
Watch TNG, man. Star Trek TNG.